When we started developing the idea of dilemma and discussing the forms that it will take, and then presenting it and explaining outside, the main reaction, the first reaction was about the choice of the regions, choice of the countries. So the most polite reaction was that it's a very unusual choice of regions, or sometimes interesting one. To have Armenia, Georgia, Ukraine, Poland, Belarus, Lithuania as a point of focus. And our first very simple answer was that it came very naturally from particular people that we wanted to engage in the discussion, that we wanted to make part of the dilemma. And from there, this geographical or regional focus came. So it was more about sharing not the geographical closures of borders, but these ideas and challenges and conversations that we had. And in these conversations, Europe was, of course, very important. So from this perspective of the regions which are feeling on the edges, on the borderlands of Europe, where the most exchanges and discussion between what Europe is or is not is happening. The important thing in these discussions was, of course, the political momentum for the places and the communities that we are coming from, the feeling that the most important challenges and questions are now there. There was this feeling of a need of solidarity, understood in terms of supporting each other, but also in terms of struggling together, not only for which we are not, but what we are for, yes. It was very much about the feeling and the need and the desire to create together this, what Pavlo Klinkin named yesterday as intellectual resilience. So this conviction that this is the moment of a huge challenge, but also an opportunity for the new language, new discussion, new voices. The ones that do not want to copy-paste, the ones that want to be emancipated from the discussions and narratives that kind of held us hostage for a long time now. One of the most important things in these discussions was this feeling that what we need now is to open very regional or very local discussions into broader context in terms of inviting others for that discussions to enrich it, but also giving ourselves this opportunity to step back and listen to other places and discussions with this hope that what it will bring to the table is this common responsibility for what's important and what is happening in our communities and our places. And that's why this dilemma in Użhorod, very much inspired by Andris and Dimitros and their teamwork here on the spot. This idea of Central Europe, something that they want to really discuss as something important for them. And to have people from Armenia, from Georgia, from Belarus joining it, from Poland, from Lithuania, from other places, with the hope that the inspiration will come of it, but also with the hope that it's opening this horizon for the new dilemma, which we are planning for October in Armenia and will be dedicated to Black Sea. So the idea for this session is to continue this conversation on Central Europe, asking about the you listened for 2.5 days to discuss to East Central or Europeans discussing the concept of Central Europe. How do you feel about it? How it resonates with you and your current dilemmas? That would be the first question to you and an invitation to this discussion. And the second one would be about the concepts that are important for you, kind of introduction to your dilemma, where you will invite us to your discussions. And I would very much like to start with Shota and then Topuria, and we will see how it will be with time. The next session will be led by Luzinek Haratian, with the voices of Monika Herceg and Rafael Rogiński and Ivanka. So please, Shota, if you can.
Sure. First of all, okay. Thank you very much for including us in these wonderful discussions. I should admit I came with, I don't know, you've been to panels, right? And they're mostly boring, but here, last 2 days, it really enriched me intellectually and spiritually. And before I start digging into myself about my own Europeanness, yesterday you said that it's while we talk about what does it mean to be Central European or European in broader terms, the fate of Europe is decided on the front lines, right? And the fate of Europe is decided in Ukraine. I would say the fate of the world is decided in Ukraine, because if the world goes with attempts to repaint the global atlas, then all the world order as we know it now will rest in ashes, and we will have to deal with terrible, terrible calamities. So first of all, before I start my speech, and I read Kundera's essay, and one of his criteria of Europeanness was Central Europeanness must be earned, right? So the guys who earn most of all the Central Europeanness now are Ukrainians who are doing the world's fight, and I would really want to unequivocally state Slava Ukraine and freedom must prevail. And I'm being self-critical right now, because my government, for 2021, when first time in my life, I felt ashamed because, well, Georgians can be many things, Europeans, Asians, this and that, but they're not the backstabbers. And the statement from my government sounded like Georgians are the backstabbers, and I was filled with the shame. And as many of Georgians, because 80% of Georgians support Euro-Atlantic integration. It's even enshrined in our constitution under Article 78, which explicitly states that the government must do everything in its power to attain this Euro-Atlantic integration, right? So Georgians now, this is, I should admit I'm vulnerable and a bit nervous, as you advised to do, because, and my speech will be more like a flow of consciousness, which is legit literary form, so I want, so, because the fight now is going in Georgia as well, because we are seeing that the government is doing a terrible pivot, this huge change of geopolitical vector. Well, there were some doubts. Since 2012, of course, there should be some doubts because, well, the Russian oligarch comes to the power and appoints his ex-employees in the cabinet of ministers. For example, during Corona, the Minister of Healthcare was his private dentist, and the Minister of Secret Service, so the head of Secret Services is CEO of his private bank, Kartu. The head of the Minister of Internal Affairs what used to be his bodyguard, like the personal bodyguard. So if we look at the minister's cabinet of Georgia, you see the ex-employees of Ivanishvili, and of course there were some concerns and doubts that, okay, are we well, is he the right choice? And after the years of consolidating power, and after the years of executive branch overriding everything and crystallizing the power, because Georgian Dream, the ruling party, used to be the coalition. They came to power as coalition, but now they have all the power, and we have slaves working for the oligarch. And after the consolidation of the power, it's they don't have to mask their attempts anymore, right? Because they can just say, okay, we got the guys with the guns. We don't have we have this sovereign democracy, Putin's one of Putin's inventions, so we can do what we want and what you can do against it. Georgians said, okay, we're gonna protest, and we are protesting, and I think the last 5 years of protest is, if we exclude the whole history of resistance to Russian rule, only the last 5 years of protest is Georgians earning to be European. And then there is another criteria, right? If we leave this political context, also stated by Kundera, the maximum diversity on minimum territory. So if we look at Georgia is like different, like 3 languages, which some of them, because of these separatist threats, prefer to call them dialects, but they're languages on their own, so they're not dialects. Svan is not dialect, Mingrelian is not, they're languages. Several languages and different ethnicities, different cultures living on the same territory, right? It also falls under Kundera's definition. But still, Georgians have an identity crisis. We're epitome of being on the border. We're borderland. We're positioned in between Europe and Asia. But if we deal in constructivist terms, of course, we are Europe. Again, like 80% of Georgians support Euro-Atlantic integration, and these opinion polls are done annually. And now we see in the streets, like public workers with waving the European flag as the rubber bullets are being fired, and this water cannons are being shot. But if we go deeper again, because it's a place to self-reflect, I think if we go deeper, are we really, what does it mean to be European? Is it like European Union acquis or some kind of set of values? And if we investigate by the topics, right? If we and there have been some studies done by CRRC and some polling organizations, right? The interesting thing is that it's quite hedonistic from and we are hedonist, of course. We invented wine and good times. So, it's quite hedonistic from Georgians to support Euro integration, because if we go by values and ask a typical Georgian question about LGBT rights, about ethnic, racial minorities, you get some ugly answers here and there. But they're sincere in their support to Euro integration, because they understand that Europe provides better life for them, better education for their children, and so on. But when I think about this identity crisis Georgians are experiencing, then I'm asking myself, is not Europe itself experiencing the same identity crisis? Well, we knew this last 30 years of I don't know how the academia prefers to call it, the liberal framework of international relations, the delusional thinking. I would say that after this, during the transitional period from communism, from Soviet era to capitalism, we should integrate Russia, an aggressor, in our financial systems, in our political systems, and this is the way to avoid the war. And for 30 years, Europe has produced, I mean the West Europe, has produced no leadership, and that's understandable, because of course the West Europe has seen the perils of charismatic leadership. But then again, there is 30 years of delusional thinking that, okay, if we compromise towards Russia, then if we, for example, after 2008 Georgian war. Russia got on the UN Security Council after 2008, and in a matter of couple of years, the Western leaders, including the European leaders, were shaking hands with Putin on Davos Forum, and after that, 2014 came, and still, well, the concerns were expressed and so on and so forth, but, well, Russia continued to do its bidding, because it's a schoolyard bully, right? It's you don't stop a schoolyard bully by compromising. You stop schoolyard bully by punching in the mouth. Central European countries who knew the yoke of Russian boot saw signals early, right? And countries like Lithuania, Estonia, Poland, and other Eastern European, ex-Soviet, now European countries, saw where the whole situation is developing. But the Western Europe was more like, okay, we'll have Schroeder on the board of Gazprom, and eventually it will get better eventually. So this was this is why this was like the line of demarcation for us Georgians between like West Europe and East Europe, or West Europe or Central Europe. The West Europe did not understand the struggles we were having, and East Europe did. But they could do nothing because, as expressed yesterday, everything happens in Brussels, right? It's not dispersed administratively, and okay, we can say that all the countries in European unions have the same rights and privileges, but okay, it's we know that there are like 3 countries running European Union, right? So. Now the same countries are having the same identity crisis. What does it mean to be European? We get very concerning news from the electoral processes in France, in in Holland, in Germany, and we're all now having the identity crisis. But, and it's hard to define who you are. It's always hard to define who you are because personality is always in flux, right? But we can easily define who we are not. And we can say that we are not Russians. So if we are not Russians and we understand it as Eastern Europeans or Central Europeans and so on, then at last maybe it has come, the time has come for Eastern Europe to take the leadership of Europe. Because, okay, like we saw that last 30 years the European Union has produced simple bureaucrats as leaders, who cannot forecast, who cannot project, who cannot see the threat, and who cannot project the power. And Europe now, as never, needs the leadership. And I'm not against. Yesterday, there was one thought of involving Russia in Europe, and yes, like when Russia was empire, it was a European empire. And we could talk about this as well, but only after Russia is back to being several independent republics. And then this Moscow part and St. Petersburg, we can talk with this Midland about Europeanness again. But today, the European identity of European Union, in our view, and that's why Georgians want to be integrated in European Union, although they do not, for now, they don't fall in line with sharing all of the values which are venerated in European Union. Well, were venerated, I don't know about now. So it's the sense of security umbrella. It's a sense of having some level of freedom and sovereignty and the right to discover who you are and the right to think about your identity and have an identity crisis on your own. and one more reading, we had this essay about we mentioned traumas the lesser states are experiencing, and we expressed yesterday that, okay, trauma is, we should be we should do the self-reflection and heal our traumas, but also we should not forget that trauma is always inflicted. Trauma is inflicted, and in our case it was inflicted by concrete power, right? And we can do healing, of course, and we need to self-reflect, we need to be even self-critical in order to heal from these traumas. And then the culture could be a great aid in this, because culture is I don't know, it's a art is self-reflection, and it's culture in its broader context is, it's a healing power. It's a way to understand somebody who you are not, right? Get a new angle, get a new perspective, and to go back to this liberal framework, what it did for transitional countries, right? It said that, okay, culture, okay, it should be governed by market forces, and that's it. We don't need to have the culture politics at all, and we don't have to have the culture policies as some kind of strategic policies in the nations. We got this very ugly phase of liberalism, which we could, which is defined as neoliberalism. When I do understand the developing power of market, being a editor-in-chief of Forbes Georgia, but also markets can do the damage, and the markets can do the damage to the culture. For example, small languages, Georgian, like of only 4 million people speak Georgian, right? If we let the market dictate what should be translated, we will not have the most of the literature which shaped the soul of Europe. We won't have Marcel Proust in Georgia. It was only recently translated because it's not profitable, and that's it. So yeah, so there's the importance of culture politics, and there's how I would demark Europeanness, like Central Europeanness and Western Europeanness, and in broader term, Europeanness, like meditating on who we are, but also explicitly stating on who we are not, and establishing these advocacy networks, because some people feel the threats more than others because of again of these traumas, right? Of the same traumas which does not let us to develop democratically, because we're always like we're a bit conservative, as István Bibo has rightfully said, because of the security threats, right? Yeah, that would be one of the solutions I could propose. I don't know. Thank you for your attention, and again, I'm honored to be here and express my non-professional views. I know we have last 5 years, what I did was staging riots, and I tend to deal in absolute terms, because I know that great philosopher Master Yoda had warned us not to only sit still in absolute terms, but we have come to the point when we should do, because war deals in absolute terms, and threats are absolute. So thanks, and that would be the end of my flow of my consciousness.
Thank you, Shota. Tea, please.
Thank you. So, I want to speak about conflicts in Georgia, in Caucasus, and how they are related to Europa. 2 years ago, I was, as a writer, participated in a literary program which was held in Spain. And I asked my Spanish colleague what experience she had with war. And she answered, my grandmother once saw how terrorists captured her neighbor, took him to the forest, and probably killed him. For me, it was ridiculous, funny, because me and my generation in Georgia have seen 5 wars, real wars, with bullets, with blood, with corpses, and so on. War in Abkhazia, it's occupied by Russia now. War in Dighmelashvili region, also occupied by Russia. 2 civil wars, and finally, in 2008, Russia-Georgian war. And except the last one, all those wars were in the 90s, so there were no media coverage and no international activities. It was a hidden tragedy, very hidden tragedy. So, and sometimes because of this, I wonder if people from West countries really understand us, our trauma, our needs, and if not, then who? Who else will understand us? Who else do we have as friends in this Pandora box? I remember in 19th, when we Georgians had our first contact with Europeans and Americans, they were coming in Georgia as experts, as trainers, and most surprising for us was not their professionalism. It existed, of course, not cultural differences, but the fact that they were smiling. And we are asking asked each other, what kind of people they are, Europeans, Americans, they were smiling. Why? Who knows? Because it was unusual for us in those years. And when we are speaking about Europa, in my mind, maybe it is not political view, it's more poetic, but for me it's two Europa. Europa with war experience and without war experience. And I think both of this is a power. Experience in war and non-experience, how to say, I don't know, but all of this is power, because different power, but it is. And so now we have occupied territory. In Georgia, Georgia is not an exception. Other Caucasus countries also has unsolved problems with unsolved conflicts. It is what we received from Soviet Union and then from Russia. This issue is often the subject of manipulation, especially for pro-Russian politicians or people. They say if we keep going to Europa and one day became European Union members, Abkhazia and Tskhin Valley region will be lost forever. But for me, and I am not the only one who thinks so, European Union, territory with no borders and large cultural diversity, is a very space where we can somehow live and communicate with Abkhazian people and people from Tskhin Valley region. Europa is our opportunity, really. This is why now thousands of Georgians are out of their homes and standing in streets protesting. And I hope Europa will be with us, and we will not be alone in this battle. It's all I wanted to say.
Thank you, Tara. So maybe now we can open the discussion for 15 minutes if someone wants to comment or raise a voice.
I have a question to Dea and to Shota, because you presented your view Georgia, Europe, but how about Caucasus or any forms of unity or cooperation or seeing Caucasus as a region? How do you see, versus the conversation about Central Europe, do you see some references in your Caucasian situation to that discussion, or it is different?
There are some similarities because, Caucasus, United Caucasus could be a geopolitical force. It could sit on the table with the big boys and really influence the world politics, right? Caucasus is not really easy to invade because of its terrain. Russia has, we've heard Katie is much more competent to talk about the attempts of unified Caucasus when we had northern Caucasus, like conglomerate of republics. She did the wonderful article for one Georgian magazine years and years ago, and it was so good I still remember it. There is. Caucasus is a melting pot, much like Europe, right? It's maximum diversity on minimum territory. There is even a joke, if we iron Caucasus, it would be larger than Europe. As in the rest of Europe, Russia had tried to sow chaos, right? To place this ethnical conflict landmines, which we have become the hostage of. We cannot. We have so many conflicts in this small region that it will take, I don't know, tens and tens and tens of years, and the sheer political will and help from external and internal powers. And external powers would not be interested, of course, in United Caucasus as well, because, well, again, we could be the big, we could be on the table with the big guys. So there is the similarity what Europe is experiencing with the mines left by the Soviet empire of evil, and what Caucasus is experiencing. But in Caucasus it's much more expressed, because it had Russia had hundreds and hundreds of years to develop these conflicts, right? Georgia used to be a foothold for Russia to invade the whole northern Caucasus. I would say reconciliation, like finding this common European identity could be a blueprint for Caucasus as well, to finding the common Caucasian identity. And then I think that Europeanism is more, now it's more political, it's more like constructivist. It's more a political context than geographical, right? And Caucasus has expressed, we're seeing the signs from Armenia now. We're seeing Armenia is, I would say, closer to Europe now than Georgia is, because it takes, well, Georgia at some point it backslided with the democracy, and it backslided with the integration. And in Armenia we see the dynamics. We see the dynamics of we see their march to the west, right? So yes, like we could be. I have this dream of united Caucasian Confederation within the borders of European Union, but it's just a dream. I hope it will be fulfilled in 100 years, if we'll exist. Yeah.
Katie, would you like to join? No? Please, Natia.
I always like to make an comparison, and right now I'm going to go within the anatomy. And my vision of the Europe and unions, and in general, whatever it has been, United Nations, doesn't matter. It has an atrophy. Reaction of really right way, in the right point, right time. 2008 was a checkpoint, how atrophy was far into the bones of every reflection of the United Nations, European Union, and then back to the point of defragmentization, decentralization, and it's all about the being you. And we've been talking with the different people here these 2 days. That my point is, we are always fighting, and whenever you fight, not we as a Georgians, we humans fight for rights all the time, everywhere. Whenever you stop fighting, that's when any kind of disaster comes. Within the tyranny or doesn't matter what kind of institutional voice or the word you give to this atrophy at the time. What I'm saying is, this is time, and really time, especially in Georgia, because you see now on the streets not one generation, which is the Gen Zs. It's the 3 generation, which is their parents and our parents as well. So, see, the ones who started the fight the first time were the older people, like in my parents' generation, then our generation, now all the young. So it's getting more stronger in terms of fight. So what I'm just, I'd like to add of all the discourses that I've heard all these 2 days, that probably it's time to start rethinking about what we can do and where our fighting line stands on, like where do we stand for. And I want to make one really interesting, for me, fighter, but in an urban voice. As a cities, James Jacob said, cities have the capability of providing something for everybody only because and only when they are created by everybody. So I believe in this in terms of nations as well. Doesn't matter. Cities is just a small unity of the economic and some kind of entity of living space, because this is how the civilization went into the cities, because we are at the end, all of us are from the rural part, and then we became the urban nation. So the Georgia definitely is a rural nation. We don't have a I don't have an ambition that we are urban nation, but the whole thing about it is that how atrophic got into our minds, and how we actually look at some kind of illusion that someone is gonna do your fight. No, your fight is there wherever it started, and it's always on the line. And if we talk about the borders as well, this is like a borderland. It's such a great word for everything, because border at the end is the land, and we make this like vision of the borders. So I think the freedom and the fighting for the freedom is never-ending story in all the history that we know, the world history and the nation's history and the ethnical history, in any layers of the social, economic, and cultural layers. So it's probably us as here gathering for the next, I don't know, one-day dilemma convention thing would be, what's common? What do we have in common? What is this commonness that we are into? And we talked about the translation. Yeah, translation is interesting, but at the end, I think we're transitioning into the space, time, I don't know, countries. So yeah, I just want to bring on the table the one, for me, interesting to discuss. What do we have in common? And where our line of fight stops or starts? And where's this borderland of calling it like, I don't know, probably solidarity at the end. Because we all come up to we want a peace in the world, not the fight, right? And we all do recognize the enemy is one, and this is Russia, period. Thank you, sorry.
Yes, please, Oksana.
Thank you so much. So maybe not about only Georgia, maybe about this and our thinking about Central Europe. It seems to me that we lose something very important, and we speak all time about the values, and we lose very important values. It's safety and security. And it seems to me that we have a new dilemma, and it's about dilemma of safety, security from one people, one person, and safety of all country. Safety of one country and safety of European Union, world, and so on. And now we have this dilemma, and so it's about our Ukraine war also, because many countries still thinking that safety of world is lose the safety of Ukraine, because we the Third World War cannot start. So it's new dilemma, and when we speak about freedom, we really also struggling not only for freedom but safety also. And another thing what we must, as for me, rethinking about this, it's something like utilitarian approach to thinking what is safety and what is freedom. In our Ukrainian way, we have this answer. It seems to me that we have this answer. Its answer is dignity. Dignity, and it's also this space between fuck off and go with me. Because sometimes it's about these two ways. And another thing what I want to say, it's also about Georgia. It's about every country that have conflicts, and about trauma also. We need healing. It seems to me that with round table, it's something like way of healings. Healing all our traumas, all our country, and sometimes personal trauma that we have because of our experience of our nations. So, but the most important question, how we must not only healing, but produce something new. And it must be healing for the world, really. And one more, and the last, really, we all time we thinking about new language. We need new languages, new words. Just don't lose that we have very strong and old words to make to tell the evil is evil. Thank you.